The previous videos have been titled according to the principles of design, but in each of those videos, not only do I discuss the principles of design, but I talk about how the elements of design create those principles. In this last video, I want to summarize what we've learned. First of all, principles of design are the goals that we have for our design. They include emphasis, hierarchy, unity, variety, contrast, balance, movement, typography. Although typography is questionable whether people categorize it as a principle or element or in a category all its own. However, those principles, as I've just mentioned, are key to effective graphic design. Your job is to create a graphic design, a visual communication piece that effectively communicates a message to a target audience. In order to do that effectively, you have to utilize the principles of design, especially the principles of emphasis and hierarchy. I've talked about having a strong, emphasized focal point that interacts well with a headline if you're doing advertising. But even if you're not doing advertising, you're still going to want a strong visual focal point, a strong visual first point of emphasis that draws you into the piece. And then you want hierarchy that guides you around the piece. You have to make sure that the viewer sees what you want them to see in the order that you want them to see it. You, as a graphic designer, have control over that. Then there are other things that we've talked about, like balance, symmetrical or asymmetrical, contrast, movement, unity, variety, and typography. And one of the important things we mentioned with regard to typography is the typography has to match the tone, feel, and message. We don't do random typography. And what I mean by random typography is we just don't pick a type style for no reason at all. It's really important to think about what it is you're trying to communicate, the emotion behind it, and find a type style that makes sense with what you're trying to communicate. In the previous videos about the principles of design, I showed you examples of those principles using graphic design, fine art, and photography. And I showed you how they work in all three. One of the additional things I want to emphasize is in most of the photography I showed you, it wasn't creative photography. It was photography, very good photography, that is taking a view in the real world. I wanted to point out to you that the reason why we have these principles and the reason why we have these elements is because they actually come from the real world. They exist in the real world. You and I interact with them from the time we're born till the time we die. Knowing about them, understanding how we react to the visual things we come in contact in the real world helps us to understand how to create good graphic design. In the remaining part of this video, I want to show you three different visual communication pieces. Obviously, you've been looking at this first one, the Joker. It is an excellent poster. It is an excellent piece of graphic design. What I would like you to do right now, while everything is fresh in your mind, get a pencil or pen, a piece of paper or your sketchbook, and then after I finish talking, pause the video and look at this piece of graphic design and write down the principles and elements that you see in this piece. Spend some time, maybe 5 minutes with this. Write down the principles and elements based upon what we've covered in the previous videos and what was covered in the previous web pages that you looked at and took notes on. Spend about 5 minutes or so, maybe longer, but really take some time to analyze and look and see and try to understand what is going on with things like emphasis, hierarchy, unity, variety, contrast, balance, movement, typography. Those are the principles, and note the elements that we've focused on, including space, line, shape, size, color, texture, value. After you do that for this graphic design piece, go ahead and hit the play button and you'll see the next fine art piece. Pause it and do the same thing. Analyze it. After you analyze the fine art piece, hit the play button again and you'll see a photo. Pause it, analyze it, and then that's the end of this video. I hope through these video lessons you have a much better grasp of the principles and elements of design. You're going to need it because we're going to start turning our attention towards doing design. And because we're starting to do design, I want you to start thinking of yourself as designers. I'm no longer going to call you zinies, little baby designers. I'm going to start calling you designers. Think of yourself as a designer. Get involved in design. Read about design. Learn about design. Look at the world around you and notice everywhere you look are the principles and elements of design. And look at everything that man made, everything you come in contact with. Anything from a chair to a menu in a restaurant to a car, and of course, to marketing, communication, advertising, commercials, all of those things that graphic designers do. Hope you enjoyed it. See you soon.